following is a production of STARFLIGHT Media. STARFLIGHT Media. STARFLIGHT Media.
Now entering the nexus of geekery and guy world in 3, 2, 1. Mark.
Hello, IT. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
This is the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast.
Hey kids, welcome back to another exciting edition of the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. I'm your host, Ian J. Malone, going to be joined by my co-host, Kevin Steverson, Rob Howell, here in just a few moments. Also got a fantastic guest interview on tap for you tonight, talking all things books and sci-fi, the usual spiel. Before we do that, though, let's pay some bills. Got to give a quick shout-out to our presenting sponsor. That would, of course, be Chris Kennedy Publishing. Doesn't matter what you're into, folks. If it's military, sci-fi, space opera, fantasy, urban fantasy, craft, paranormal, romance... They got it all. Chris Kennedy Publishing. Go check them out online. They are chriskennedypublishing.com. Message-free sci-fi with a shot of rock and roll. Shot of rock and roll. Don't I wish? Shot of fantasy, because that's what they do. Fellas, please come in here and save me. Rob and Kevin, how are we doing, man?
Well, I just want to say that the fantasy side of thing is rocking and rolling right now.
Oh, with the segue!
There we go.
Rob Howe, man. Brother, you are coming along on your radio chops. I am so very proud of you. I'm like a proud papa at this moment. You have learned well, young one.
I say we
Thanks,
add rock and roll to it.
Thanks, Obi-Wan.
Hell yeah, man. So what's up, Kevin?
I say we add rock and roll to the whole thing. Come on.
Oh yeah, man. Well, there's rock and roll in this show. There ain't no doubt about that. A little bit of rock and roll, a little bit of country. I'm pretty sure that's been used somewhere down the line. I've heard that, but we make it a hell of a lot cooler on this show.
And another spoiler alert on this line: there's some rock and roll coming out in the Salvage Title universe. I'm just saying.
Indeed. Well, I mean, good Lord, that's the universe that brought you the book about the guy named Van Hagar. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. So, all right, well, we got ourselves a great interview on the hook tonight. This is a guy that people around Chris Kennedy Publishing, the 4HU, sci-fi in general, know this guy very well. For those of us who do the con scene and the podcasting scene, this is not only a great writer, but a good colleague and a good friend. And with that, we welcome in the one, the only, the Hillbilly himself, Mr. William Joseph Roberts. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
All right, now I'm kind of paranoid because you're like, who's watching me, man? Who's got their eyeballs on me? Is it good eyeballs? Is it bad eyeball? If the man's watching, we got to keep an eye out on him.
So how's life treating you this evening, man? It has been a while since I've had a chance to chat with you. What have you been up to?
Actually, I've been stuck in Van's head working on this new existential crisis thing that he's going through, and he's just stared off into the abyss of the universe, and all is well with rock and roll in the background. And I was sitting there grilling last night, and had me a couple drinks, just sitting there chilling. I got the earbuds in, I got it cranked up as loud as I can get it to drown out everything, and I'm going through Rush and Bowie and I can't even tell you how many other songs. Elton John, Rocket Man, and I ended up landing back at Stairway to Heaven, and that was a spot that just started speaking to me. And it's like, okay, this is what I need for my scene. So I'm working on my playlist for this new story because Kevin, I kind of got to get a story done this week to you because I'm behind.
I might owe you one too, so I don't know how that's gonna.
Yeah,
you do owe me one, don't you?
I owe Rob one too, so it's.
Hey, wait a minute, chop, man. Where's my story at?
Hey, look, I just sent off the entire anthology for the first anthology off to Chris Kennedy that I finished going over everybody else's stories. So it's
So I can be a day late and I'd be all right.
Hillbilly, I'd be remiss, man. If you're a Zeppelin fan, please tell me you've checked out Greta Van Fleet.
Well, yeah. Dude, okay, I got my Greta Van Fleet shirt on right now. All right, the first time I heard these dudes on the radio, I'm cruising on. I think I was coming home from work and just like, well, what the hell? Zeppelin's back? What's going on? I pulled off the side of the road because, the radio was like, and that was Greta Van Fleet. Who? Who the hell is that? I pulled off the side of the road in the battlefield and started looking it up like, no, that was Zeppelin.
Yep. No, dude, so nice. And listen, I love the classics as much as anybody. We talk about that stuff ad nauseum on this show because we're all, just around the same age. I love it. I mean, I can listen to Led Zeppelin all day long. From time to time, though, really kind of nice to have something new to check out. Regardless of
Oh,
what
yeah.
genre you're into, it's nice to have something fresh on occasion. And it just seems like it's been forever since we've had a rock band come out. Not a, metal light band that's kind of been eased up just enough to be commercially friendly for radio, not a
Or a
hip-hop
grungy
rock
pop band.
or a grungy pop band, or, Breaking Benjamin the 12th, whatever the case may be. An old school, grab your freaking classic rock band. Love it.
And I fell in love with them right then. I mean, we bought the album, got shirts, like, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I think the last band to do that, and it's not necessarily the classic rock, but just a good band, was Daughtry. In the last 10 years or so,
Yeah, North Carolina boy.
Yeah,
that
Daughtry,
one.
I like the sound. So.
Yep. So, alrighty. Rob, what you got for us, man? You're on chair for this interview. I know you got some questions lined up for Hillbilly here. So, what say you, man? I'm going to turn the mic over to you because I'll burn his ear off all night long talking about music.
So will I. But I'll go off on this weird, folk metal stuff like Corpiclani and Tyr and Who. And
Oh no, we're fine doing that too. I mean, you want to get into some Wardruna and Heidi Volk. Oh God, man. Okay, my genre range is across, with the exception of hardcore gangster rap. ICP to the side because I listen to ICP just because it's screwed up, and old school twangy country western. There's only so much David Allan Coe that I can take. I mean, I listen to everything though.
Oh, the good stuff, Black Prairie and some of those bands, some of that, yeah. The contemporary folk stuff.
So I think the place to start, since we're talking rock and roll, is rocking and rolling at Mach 2 or 3. And I don't know that you ever got a chance to do that, but you made it happen. I'm sure you had a bunch of scraped knuckles and sweated buckets on flight lines, and I suspect there might have been a few words we probably shouldn't say uttered when parts didn't go in right. But you were in the Air Force as an F-15 mechanic, is that correct?
Yep. 10 years of turning wrenches on F-15s.
Tell us about that. Any fun stories?
What can I tell? That was one of those things. I started out with a list when I was really young, and crewing aircraft, just being an aircraft mechanic was one of those. Like 5 years old, going into kindergarten, I wanted to be an aircraft mechanic. Don't know why. Just I've always been mechanically inclined, always tinkered with things, and I'd have went in a lot sooner. Like I was set up to go in right after high school, and the day after graduation. But my mama was, they're going to get you shipped off and killed. I'm like, okay, so I stayed around. Worked in the mining, hydraulics mining supply place, doing back shop work for hydraulic systems, and I got to go into coal mines a couple of times. And being
that's safe.
Being in a 4-foot seam, knee deep in water, and you see the brake line shifting above your head, and you're 1.5 miles underground. It's like, I'm going to go ahead. And I got all signed up, ready to go. My uncle blabbed about a week and a half before I left, and so my mom found out. Okay, I don't care anymore. I'm gone. Because that's one thing with Southern West Virginia. At that particular time, you had either coal mines or the military. Those were basically your choices, unless you wanted some penny ante job working at McDonald's or something like that, because there really wasn't a lot of work going on.
F-15 sounded a heck of a lot more fun than coal mines.
Oh God, yes. And I almost ended up on A-10s, and I could have went either way. I've always loved the F-15. The F-4 Phantom was my first love, but they'd already phased her out by the time that I got in there. Probably, I don't know, one of the most interesting tales that I've told before, probably when I was at Kadena. Okay, I know Kevin's military. Are you military, Ian?
I don't think either Ian or I were in the military.
Okay. Well, every so often we'd go in there and we'd be doing war games, exercises and stuff like that. And you'd have to dress up in chem gear and all that junk and simulated attacks. And at Kadena, we had the main row of flow-throughs for the aircraft to park under, and then down about a quarter mile down the ramp, we had all these hardened shelters left over from Vietnam era. And that was simulated Base X usually. Base X being, we were probably Korea is what we were figuring. So me and my buddy Don, we're the last dudes on the flight line. We're stuck up there on the hard broke line. Everybody else is already deployed to Base X. We're stuck at home base, fixing everything that couldn't fly out. And it's like 2, 3 in the morning. He's up in the cockpit. We're just finishing up an engine run because we'd swapped engines out on this thing and got up and running. I had a weapons troop out there doing a fire guard for us because you had to have somebody on fire guard with somebody on the ground. And we're just about done. Leak checks are done. Buttoning panels up. And he goes to shut it down. And on those old F-100 engines at that time, you had to run up the throttle about 80% and then chop it, so you could run the oil up into the top of the gearbox and it'd settle back down. So he goes to run it up, and about that time, I saw somebody walking up into the exhaust. Like, chop it, chop it, chop it. That's he shuts it off, and I'm already pissed. Because it's like 3 in the morning. We've been busting our hump for 12, 13 hours already. And I just ain't got the patience to deal with somebody coming up in there and being stupid. I get back here, and behind us was a nose dock, and the big floodlights were shining down into my eyes, and so I couldn't really see them. I could just see the silhouette. I get up there, I'm already cussing and swearing. I'm throwing my headset off, and get up to this dude. He's standing there in civvies on the flight line inside the restricted area where you're supposed to have a line badge and all this and that. One of the hangars nearby had Marines in it. They had a tendency to kind of wander over after they got drunk at the hangar every now and then. They had Harriers and stuff over there, Ecadena, that flew out there. And I just looked at him and was like, get on the ground now. This is it. On the ground now or I hurt you. And dude was on the ground crying, trying to get his name out of him, where he's from, asking him if he was from the Marines over there, and he's blubbering by this point. And my buddy Don, he's already climbed out of the cockpit. And he's like, don't kill him, Hillbilly, and hey, I sent him back to go get the comm cord disconnected from the aircraft, and I hogtied this kid, wrists and ankles, face down, took his wallet out, checked his ID. He happened to be a cop. Okay, he was an Air Force SP because it's got his unit on his ID. Okay, how long have you been on island? 2 weeks, sir. And mind you, I'm an E4 at this time.
Nobody ever says sir to you.
my buddy Don, he outranked me just from time in service and all that, but it was my flight line at that point. I mean, yeah, it was me and him running the show out there. But, it was just like, okay, well, kid's been on the island 2 weeks. I'm sitting there looking around, and that's about the time I caught a glimpse of motion, about 3 or 4 flow-throughs down. A couple of heads popping out like 3 Stooges around a corner. Like, this is an intruder exercise, isn't it? Yes, sir. Okay. And I just start marching my way on down the road. And these 3 pop out, and they're clapping, and that is the quickest takedown. Wait, shut the F up. Shut it now. I don't give it. I mean, I'm going off on these dudes. Well, there was a captain, there was a senior master sergeant, and a lieutenant. And as soon as I started into them, they started the snake pit, man. And it's just like I was inputting all 3 of them. You will get off my flight line right now. Every one of you. And I explained to them, you guys sending this kid out here who has had 0 training on any of the safety areas on this aircraft, who almost walked into the jet wash of an aircraft which was at 80%, would have been getting sent home to his mother in a box for Christmas. Finally got him off my flight line. Chief come out, got a hold of me. Next day next morning I'm talking to the chief, because he come out there and is like, Hillbilly, you can't be doing this. What are you doing? I get talked to by the commander and all that. And I explained everything. And so I don't deal with stupid well. There's a reason I didn't get promoted quick. But
none of this surprises me, by the way.
By the end of all this, and we're still doing base exercises. No, we've been doing, oh God, at this point we were already doing base exercises like every other week. And then in between we were doing squadron exercises to prep for the base exercises because we got this Yahoo base commander that come out of Korea that wanted to make things make a big name for himself and turn Kadena around. I mean, it got to the point that, the Phantom Shitter reappeared and, the pressure washers, they miraculously stopped working because, alcohol in the fuel tank does wonders. I mean, it just stupid stuff. And we were doing this for like 6 months, man. So nerves were already frayed at that point. But when all was said and done with this particular scenario, the three of them actually came and apologized to me. They came out, apologized.
Nice.
They had instituted a training program for their new troops coming on island. Because seriously, there's 1,000 ways to die on one of those aircraft. And him walking into a full power exhaust is going to send him hurtling across the flight line. It's just like, no. I've never dealt with stupid well.
But you get to say you got to chew out a captain and get away with it.
Yeah, well, I've manually removed a colonel from the seat before too.
Well, that's par for course for somebody in the E4 Mafia. I mean, if there was.
Well, no, see, I was a staff at that point. I was a staff at that point though, but I mean, this dude, he was a desk jockey. He was out there to get his monthly flight pay, get his recert, and he was running late, full bird. Okay. He gets up there, all right, come on, Chief, let's go. And we're getting things ready on the ground, and he did not wait for me to signal. See, on the ground, in that spot, the crew chief on that spot is God. They are in charge of everything going on. Pilot has zero say. Well, he went ahead and started the secondary power, which sends the hair off at the top of my B-man's head, who happened to be walking underneath, coming over to the fire extinguisher to get ready for the launch. And it's like, no, we ain't doing this. Shut it down. And I had everybody piled up around. I mean, I had the prod super. I had the chief, the captain, the LT, the expediter, my flight chief. Just like everyone was like, Hillbilly, what's going on? I'm just like, you need to get off Hillbilly's spot before he kills you.
So this is a good transition. You've got a lot of stories, so it's a good transition to how'd you get into writing?
Oh, I've been into writing for as long as I can remember. I've always been jotting down stories and thinking up ideas and creating little worlds and things like that since I was little.
So how would you then encourage other writers to get into it? I mean, if it's always been easy for you, not necessarily easy.
Well, no, it wasn't necessarily easy. Now, see, growing up in Southern West Virginia, information is limited. Going to my literature and my English teachers and stuff like that, trying to figure out how to go about growing and learning more about the craft and things like that. Because I was writing short stories in junior high and high school, but I had no idea what to do with them, where you could send them, or anything like that.
Sure, that makes sense.
We really didn't do much on magazines. I mean, comic books, but most magazines were like Vogue and crap like that. So I never saw, Soldier of Fortune or anything until I was out on my own. So the selections were real minimal. You had the Globe and crap like that. That junk. Really, I started working on my first novel right about 2001. About 2001, I started just cranking through, writing a full novel, creating characters, all this and that. And, life gets in the way and stuff. But really, it came down to LibertyCon. LibertyCon is where I learned the craft of writing, the business of writing, the networking, all of that.
Yeah, that was a place for me, too. That was a huge influence on my career as well.
With the number of people that I met, the networking connections, the amount of information that was available. I mean, I walked out of there with contact info for NASA scientists, archaeologists, things like that. It was the springboard. I mean, right there was insane amount of information, and it took me a while to comprehend everything and absorb it. The one thing that I keep going back to was at that LibertyCon, I did a writing workshop with Charity Ayers, and she went through all this spiel and everything, and then had us sit down and write for 15 minutes, just doing a writing sprint. And then she had us read it out loud and all that, and I kind of scared everybody in the room because, as you guys know, I've got a big loud mouth and I don't need a microphone on a panel.
We do know that.
Little panel, that class, it doesn't matter who told me that my writing was good. I still think my writing is crap, but whether it was my wife, my friends, anyone else, random strangers reading it's like, this is real. Yeah, you get that paranoid, like, you're just giving me mom answers because you want to appease me. That's not the real answer. You don't really like it, do you? And you get in your own head and you start screwing with your own squirrels. But
I totally
just
rock
that. The whole situation, sitting there reading the story out loud, she's liking it, the other people are liking it, and I keep coming back to that one moment, and it's like she gave me permission. For whatever reason, I needed a perfect stranger's permission to write and understand that I can do this. And it's been gangbusters since. I walked out of there taking that story that I had started, that little scene, and I put it into the my story When Vulcans Cry, which was in the Shada Toys anthology. I walked out of that convention with an offer to join an anthology, which was awesome. And
that's brilliant. What more can you ask for?
Right. And the year after, it's just like more and more. It's now to the point I have a list, and I'm like, I got to get this. I got to get Kevin one by next weekend. I got another one due to Bill Webb, another story to do to Bill Webb next month, and then I got to get Tony the story for the LibertyCon antho in September. And it's just like there's so much to do now. I don't know where to start some days.
Wait till I start hitting you up for stuff from my super secret project.
Oh, wait. Ooh. Hey, baby. What you got? Okay,
So,
I got honey mead we can trade.
Ron, baby.
Well, now.
So let's talk about Flux Runners. Was Flux Runners your first novel that you published?
Yes. Flux Runners is sci-fi space opera comedy. I had to get that out of my system before I could write something more serious. There is a lot of just stupid adult humor, crude humor. I mean, there's this one scene where Rachel, the pilot, she's beating the science officer over the head, and it's just they've got this sibling rivalry thing. They're stupid fruit flies. They've got this whole sibling rivalry thing going on where they're arguing back and forth all the time. But I kind of modeled the crew on the crew of Firefly, of Serenity, because the family, the bonding, and Kevin understands family isn't always blood. I know that military, we all have that whole other level of family. Con family is another whole other family, and these guys might argue and fight and everything else, but they'll take on anybody that messes with one of theirs.
So that leads me perfectly to the next thing I wanted to mention. You did me a great honor by giving me the opportunity to sort of be the lead author for one of the Corner Scribblers micro story anthologies. And, Corner Scribblers, you should tell us about this group and about all the things that they do, because it seems like you got a bit of a family there too.
Yeah. The Corner Scribblers is the new reincarnation of my old writing group. See, when I first got to this area, I found out about the Chattanooga Writers Guild. I learned the hard way that literary and pulp do not mix the greatest when it comes to writing groups and things like that. And I started my own writing group. I did sci-fi, fantasy, horror, doing all the pulp stuff. Well, life, babies, cancer, all that kind of stuff got in the way. And at the same time, I was doing a podcast back then too. The podcast stopped. the writing group stopped. The writing stopped. I got to a point almost that, well, if the wife hadn't taken all my stuff, all my notebooks and everything, I was going to burn it when I got home that night. And I'm glad she did. I'm glad she hid it away from me.
Well, that brings up just quick thing. Writers need to be aware that sometimes there are reasons why writing is difficult as opposed to excuses. And we have to give ourselves permission. You talked about permission earlier. We have to give ourselves permission to let reasons, things like moving, things like kids, things like cancer, these sorts of things are reasons why we aren't necessarily as productive as we are at given times. They're not excuses. We want to avoid excuses. But that sounds like reason. Still, it's a hard thing to balance sometimes.
I was doing 60, 70-hour work weeks at that point too. So, it was chaos.
And you have to, as a writer, you have to sort of be aware that stuff influences you. And I think this, sorry to segue here, but from a publisher's perspective, I want my people, and I suspect you probably feel the same as a publisher yourself, I want my people to work as hard as they can without ruining their souls.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I want them to, if they move, to take breaks. If they have kids, the kids come first, and family that's sick, that comes first. We can adjust publishing schedules. You can't fix. I can't do anything about the real life things.
Well,
anyway, sorry.
If I could throw something in on that, it shows in the writing after a while. I mean, listen, we'll use Stephen King for an example. I mean, you can go back and look at some of his early stuff and tell when he was whacked out of his gourd on whatever substance of choice it was that day, and it's strikingly different than the stuff he wrote when he was not. So, life, emotion, stuff, stress, that plays a role in the product that actually comes out on the page. I'm a big believer in that your time is finite. You don't get more than 24 hours in a day. And you wear a lot of hats if you're a dad, if you're a writer, if you're like most of us, you have a day job. Sometimes those different facets of your life require more time than others, and you've got to be able to balance the equation. And sometimes the writing's got to pay a little bit of a price for that, sadly.
Yep,
but it is what it is. We're human beings, man.
Now, in 19, I was at a local little authors convention that they had over here in Ringgold called the Next Chapter Con. And a lot of my old writing group happened to show up there. And more than a few of them, they were like, hey, when are we starting up the writing group again? We should do this again. And I sat there and I really thought about it. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to being just a stupid little critique group that's doing nothing. We mark on the same thing every month and nobody's ever progressing because nobody wants to. It's like, no. And the more I thought about it, it's like, okay, I like to give back. I do. That's one reason I volunteer for LibertyCon.
Yeah,
I want to give back.
I totally see you working there all the time now.
Oh God, you have no idea oh God, that was brutal for virtual, but we did it. I decided to go ahead and put the group back together, but it was going to be a writer support group, not a critique group. And we took it one step further as we started talking, and we're meeting monthly. We're okay. Who needs help with what? What are you working on? Okay, have you tried this and that? We're tossing out all these ideas from all these different directions. And so we started to produce product. It started out as little 500-word flash fiction collections, and we upped it to 1,000 because, oh my God, 500 words is insanely hard to do.
1,000's tough enough.
1,000's tough enough. But, it's a good exercise once a quarter, and we've been changing the themes. And the one that Rob was on was Dragons and Dribbles. It was a fantasy-themed collection. I did one of my Draven stories, Den of the Drake. Yep. Which the audio isn't work on that right now. One of the corner scribblers is a narrator.
Awesome.
So we're when the stories come in, we all take turns and go through and do our bleed on it. So everybody's seeing everybody else's marks, and we're seeing how others are catching things. And just by doing this, I've been learning more. Because I'm not catching that and that and that. Well, okay, now I'm actively looking for that stuff because this is stuff that I've seen. So we're all growing. We had one guy, oh my God, his stuff was, I wanted to scratch my eyes up. And he's actually, with the exception of some little tweaks, gotten to where he's writing good prose. It's not
excellent.
It's not excellent stuff, but it's leaps and bounds from where he started. So the group in itself has done its job.
Well, I have to say that experience of writing No Southern Edge for you was a neat challenge and forced me to think about every word. Because
Uh-huh.
even at 1,000 words, to get a cohesive narrative really is tough.
But we're helping each other grow as a group. We get together, we help each other with research and things like that. We're bouncing ideas off each other. And on top of it, the little flash fiction collections that we're producing, it's padding our author accounts. It makes it look pretty.
And that's always nice. So that's probably helping you a ton with Three Ravens Publishing, which is your publishing house that you've been doing really well from what I've seen. So talk to me about that.
Okay, so Three Ravens Publishing started in 2019, like March of 2019. I did nothing with it for the whole year because I had to finish Flux Runners. Flux Runners was the first title published through Three Ravens. Last year we published 32 titles. Yeah, 32.
You're on the Chris Kennedy career arc.
Well, no, this is counting, the Corner Scribbler stuff, and I did a couple of repubs and some short stories, things like that. And it all counts. It all counts. It's learning curve. I'm learning with every title, and I'm striving for solid uniformity between everyone the books, so they all look the same. And the whole main point of it was it's a place for me to publish my stuff, but I pulled in R.J. Layden and Benjamin Tyler Smith. They're the other two Ravens. And, like I said, that it's a platform for us to publish our stuff, our labors of love, the ones that we don't really want to turn loose, because indie publishing is something beyond what it used to be. I mean, you don't have to go with a traditional publishing house anymore.
I actually think that these publishing houses like yours and like Chris Kennedy Publishing, the sort of independent, but not quite, like sort of bridging that gap between the traditional publisher and the main indie writer level, I think is probably the best hybrid I've seen, which is obviously one of the reasons why I joined on to be the publisher of New Mythology Press, because like you, I saw an opportunity for us to improve everybody's quality, including especially my own.
Yeah. And, dear God, the submissions keep coming in.
I know the feeling.
And, right now I'm getting ready for a big shift where I'm going to just start cranking out words of my own for a while, because I've been doing the publishing thing with STARFLIGHT, and that one was a big undertaking.
Tell us about STARFLIGHT.
Okay, for anybody that doesn't know what STARFLIGHT is in general, it was a open sandbox space opera video game in the 80s. Came out in 86. It was the first game of its kind where you could just play through the entire world and never actually do the storyline. And I played way too many freaking hours of that game growing up. Last October, I just sitting there, I found out that it was on GOG for like $2 for Starflight 1 and Starflight 2. I got it. I started playing it, and I just started thinking, like, why hasn't anyone ever wrote in this universe? And I'd heard that there was some fan fiction on some forums back in the day, and I went looking for it, and I couldn't find anything. So I just started poking around, and then I tracked down the creator of the story, Greg Johnson, and then I found the IP holder, Rod McConnell. And I asked if I could write in the universe. Rod said yes. Greg was excited about it. So I struck up a contract. Rod signed off on it, and next thing you know, I'm writing in a video game IP that I asked a question. So never, ever, ever be scared to ask a question to anybody. I asked Robert Silverberg if I could republish his story through the Time Lens, which was originally published in the Sega Genesis version game manual. And he said yes. The only stipulation was he didn't do any brain work thing.
Editing changes?
No.
Publicity?
Publicity. There we go. That's the word. Stupid brain. Squirrels. He wanted me to remove the whole publicity part out of it, where he didn't have to do any of it, and he wanted to copy the book for his show. It's like, absolutely, yes, sir. So I got Robert Silverberg. because I asked the question. You know?
Yeah, I've gotten a number of authors to write for me already that I was like, well, what the hell? Because the least that could happen is that Kevin J. Anderson turns me down.
Yeah, what are they going to do? Say no? Okay. Wait, well, I was actually talking to Kevin J. Anderson about joining in the Starflight anthology. And because of the deadline, and he was in the middle of trying to finish the next Dune book, he had to turn it down because he didn't have time to learn the universe. And it's like, dude, that's totally understandable. You know, it's all good. But, you know, I'm chatting with you on email, so that's okay. And I get to brag to my buddies about it. So it's worth it if nothing else. You know,
I have some of those brushed by greatness stories myself. All right. So we're winding up, and I want to get to the heart and soul of you as a person, which I have to say really is encapsulated by the single fact that your favorite TV show from the 1970s was BJ and the Bear. Tell us about BJ and the Bear, man.
Oh, dear God. I mean, that's one of those, man, I loved it for the monkey and then the trucks, you know. It's just, that's a whole other time frame. And, you know, I've went back and I've watched some of it, and oh, dear God, don't ever do that. You know, keep those fond childhood memories where they're at.
Dude, man, sidebar, whenever I was in college, my buddy Dre and I were sitting in my apartment one day and, you know, wax nostalgic about old stuff. And like, dude, you remember G.I. Joe the movie? That was awesome. Like, there was blood and they killed Duke, spoiler alert. And yeah, it was awesome, dude. Man, I haven't seen that in years. So we run to the Blockbuster to see if they had it. They didn't have it. So we ended up running to the brand new store down on Appalachia Parkway called Best Buy that everybody was still, you know, gaga about, and they had it. So we got it, brought it back to the house, plugged it in. 90 minutes later, that sucked. That was awful. What were we ever thinking? Can we get our money back?
Yep.
I feel you. Sometimes it's just nice to not go back down the road. You can't go home again, all those happy cliches.
Although I will say, you know, I thought that would be the case when I watched A-Team was on one of the TV channels, like one of the streaming services. I said, well,
Roku channel, it's free. So is Magnum.
Yeah.
Magnum, A-Team, Quantum Leap, and I think Airwolf's on there. And
oh, God.
Knight Rider. I think Knight Rider's on there, too. Yeah, man, Roku channel's awesome.
I was surprised how well A-Team held up. I mean, obviously it was campy at the time, but it's, you know, going in expecting campy, fun. You know, the interaction between those characters was always the main thing for me.
Hey, Murdoch, best character ever.
All the way.
He's up there. All right, well, William, I want to thank you for joining us despite all the hassles that we've had because of weather, and Ian is in some storms today, so that's messed with us.
It's all good.
Looks like we're persevered all the way to the end. Now's your chance to tell us about everything you got going and where we can find you and where we can find it all. And pump your stuff, baby.
All right, so start with threeravenspublishing.com. We've got the latest titles we got out. We have a comedic satire, sci-fi, timey-wimey called Zoomers by John Drake. If you like Douglas Adams or Doctor Who, you're going to love that. The latest epic fantasy out is The Raven and the Crow, Darkstorm Rising. It's in the same vein as the Belgariad, Wheel of Time. You get sucked straight into it. I had such a hard time editing that thing. Then, of course, Starflight, Tales from the Starport Lounge, based in the Starflight universe, created by Greg Johnson. We've got 17 stories, including one by Robert Silverberg that you are going to absolutely love. If you're into sci-fi, space opera, or the retro game scene, check it out. And then Taking the Night by J.F. Posthumous is coming up at the 6th of August will be our next title out, and a new JTF coming out shortly thereafter on that. Now, for my stuff, if you look over at WilliamJosephRoberts.com, and by the way, mine and Three Ravens, it's on pretty much every social media platform, including TikTok at this point. I'm currently trying to finish out this whole slew of short stories that I got piled up so that I can get to the next novel, which is going to be a Mill Sci-Fi title if the squirrels are still screaming at me at that time. For whatever reason, I don't usually like Mill Sci-Fi, but I had an idea pop in my head and it's just screaming at me. I don't want to give anything away on that one because I haven't figured it all out yet.
Sounds like you got a lot going on now.
Yeah, I mean, I got Flex Runners 2. I've got an urban fantasy I'm going to write. I've got to finish Dogs of War for Kennedy, which is a parallel to Wildcat, and then I got to get to Wildcat 2. And then at some point, me and Woods have to write Smuggler's Quest, which is a follow-on to Smuggler's Run. God, that one's so horrible. That one is a train wreck, but I love it.
Well, it was inspiration to me. It helped inspire the story that Kevin is in the midst of publishing right now. So, you know, if you thought you had the record before, even if Guinness didn't give it to you, you didn't, not on a page count basis. We'll talk.
Well, and you know, that was interesting. It's like, well, why not? Why are they going to say no? And I went ahead and filled out all the paperwork, filed for the Guinness Book of World Record on that, and they came back and said it was not a tangible thing that they could count. It's like, well, crap.
So you should tell the audience what that category was.
The most the most pop culture references in a science fiction novel. Which, you know, they've got the category for video games. Borderlands 2, I think, was the winner of that one. But they didn't take one for novels. I'm like, well, crap. Okay, fine.
It's still fun to shoot at. So
oh, yeah, absolutely.
I aimed at your record.
Well, I think, what was it? We had 177 or 207, something 7. I don't remember at this point. I have to go back and look at my notes.
I'm just going to say I put 232 intentional references in the short story I sent to.
In a short story. Oh my God. You okay there, Kevin?
And he did it well too. He did it well, so it's not. Yeah.
Wow. Now I want to read that one.
So, do you have anything else before we let you go and get to your tomatoes and your hot peppers and your figs?
Well, okay, for any of those, I'm going to kill a dog here in a minute. For anybody out there wanting to get out there and learn, you know, how to go about being an author and all that, ask questions. Jump on there and ask authors. Join groups. You know, don't be afraid to ask a question. You know, network.
You know, that's absolutely true. I've been astounded coming from the academic community where helping others takes money directly out of your pocket. I was sort of expecting some of that coming into the writing community, but I discovered the real truth of it all here is that if we help each other, we get more readers, the pie grows, and we all make more money in the end. So everybody's been really helpful to me, and so I've tried to pass that on when I have other writers working with me.
And I don't know when this is going to go out, but on the 30th, I will be doing a live TDB Pirate Radio podcast with Greg Johnson and a group of the authors from Starflight, Tales from the Starport Lounge. So we'll get some inside skinny on the Starflight universe from the creator himself.
Very cool. Well, Hillbilly,
Awesome.
thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate the time. My storms are starting to kick back up out here, and I don't want to tempt fate anymore. So we greatly appreciate you coming on the show, brother. It's been a treat to talk to you, and absolutely cannot wait to catch up with you at the next con.
Man, hey, I appreciate y'all having me on, and man, cons coming back is an amazing thing.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
do this.
Yes, sir.
I'll see you at the end of the month, either at Dragon Con or on the way home.
All right.
Alrighty, that's going to bring us down to halftime, which is where we start to give a little bit more love to our presenting sponsor. That would, of course, be Chris Kennedy Publishing. We say it at the top of the show, and we'll say it again here. Doesn't matter what you're into, man. If it's mill science fiction, space opera, urban fantasy, they've got it all over at Chris Kennedy Publishing. Why? I'm going to nail it this time, you watch. It's because they are message-free sci-fi with a slice of fantasy. Bah!
Rock and roll, baby. Rock and
That's
roll.
right. To learn more about them, ChrisKennedyPublishing.com. That is where you can go to learn more about the authors, the books, the universes, the series, pretty much everything. Secrets of the Universe. It's right there. ChrisKennedyPublishing.com. Rob, looks like we got Space Marines out for our new release this week. What's that all about?
We got a novel by P.A. Piatt, Cherry Drop. This is the first book in Paul's Abner Fortis IFMC series, with books 2 and 3 scheduled to arrive in the next couple of months. Abner Fortis joined the International Space Marine Corps for 2 reasons: to escape a life of drudgery building biodomes for his father's company, and to pay off several billion credits in student loans, which the ISMC promised to do. Every Space Marine starts out as a cherry, though, and Abner is no different. When he makes his first combat drop, he's a know-nothing second lieutenant added to the mission roster as an afterthought. The Space Marines are tasked to support the galactic resource conglomerate while they test a revolution in military tech. Precision-crafted soldiers. Because that sort of thing always works well. All the Space Marines have to do is kill bugs. Even when a tragic accident leaves Fortis in command, the mission is still an easy breather. But when the Space Marines discover proof of a long-buried betrayal, friends become enemies and their mission goes awry. Does Fortis have the fortitude? That's a Latin scholar joke. It takes to lead the Space Marines to survival in the face of overwhelming odds? Whatever else, he'll never forget his cherry drop.
Nice. Kevin, what are the Pepples saying about this thing on the Amazon machine?
Well, Steve says this is a very, very fun read with some unexpected twists and turn-ups until the very end. It is also a completely new, unexplored universe, but based on tried and true military traditions. Now, Mike says Cherry Drop is a great find. A fun read with a good pace and keeps one's interest. The character development is pretty accurate when you have a new LT and a solid experienced NCO team who is willing to teach you and lend a hand but not be asshats. That is a great word, asshat. This is just a great book that you will love to read. Very enjoyable. Now, Brenda says, an active book with enough suspense to keep your interest in believable characters. I really enjoyed it, and I'm waiting to see if there's more to this future story.
Nice. Well, as we are wont to do at Chris Kennedy Publishing, we have ourselves a pre-release out this week. These are books that are out for sale directly through the publisher, but aren't yet out to the world. So this one will go on sale this upcoming Friday, which will be after this post, so you guys should get that. But if you want it now, you want to get it directly through the publisher via Kobe file or Mobi file for your Kindle, Nook file, Kobo file, whatever. They've got everything for you, and it will drop this Friday. That would be the 13th book in the Guild Wars series from the Four Horsemen universe. That is called And Break It Not by Robert E. Hampson and Sandra L. Medlock. This is, like I said, 13th War in the Guild Wars. It's also the follow-up to Robert's book, Do No Harm. So 4HU fans, they continue to crank that stuff out for you guys, man. So go get you some, feed your eyeballs. Book deal of the week. One of my favorites, actually, out of the CKP stable, and that would be This Fallen World by Christopher Woods. That is the book that really started it all for that universe. They got, from what I understand, a good 4 or 5 books coming out in that world by the end of this year. So if you're a fan of the Fallen World stuff, get ready to buckle up, man, because you're about to have more than you can handle. If you've never heard of this series, now's the opportunity. Go grab This Fallen World from Christopher Woods on sale this week for 99 cents. And of course, that is on Amazon. So, all right,
so
fellas.
let me just interject. Let me just say that you can look at an author's name and realize that they're good quality authors. And, you look at Robert E. Hampson and Robert E. Howard and Robert E. Howell, and you're going to get some great stuff.
What's in a name? All right, well, speaking of authors doing authorly things, before we take our pod mail questions from listeners, figured I'd give everybody kind of a round-robin stretch here where we can update everybody on projects, things that maybe you got working on coming down the pike in the immediate future. Kevin, I'll start with you, just because I know Salvage is, man, you are busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest right now.
Oh, yeah. I just finished going over all the stories for the first anthology that's coming out in September.
Okay.
And that'll come out the same week that a novel that I wrote with Casey Zavelle comes out, Salvage Mother.
Cool.
And then I've got more than half the stories in for the next anthology, which is going to be in October, because we're doing back-to-back anthologies.
Right.
In Salvage, and so that'll come out the same week that a book by Matt Novotny comes out.
Cool.
So it's staying pretty busy. We've got a couple more that are turned in, so we're going from there. As far as myself, I've got a lot of short stories. I owe Rob one. I owe Hillbilly one. Getting a lot of writing in. And then on, when I take that hat off and put another hat on, CKP International is going strong, and we've already gotten a few books back. They've been translated, and we've sent them to some early readers, native-speaking early readers in German. And so we're going from there, and there'll be some more announcements on that, in the near future. But that's happening, and the books are in German, and they've already been read by early readers. So
awesome.
Just thought I'd throw that out there for CKP International.
Awesome. Rob, what you got going on, man? Yourself and over at New Mythology Press.
Well, I've got a short story that I owe William Joseph Roberts as well. I also owe me a short story because I've got two anthologies going as well that are going to come out in, it looks like, October and November. The Talons and Talismans anthology that I pushed for people to join, the response has been amazing. So it's going to be two anthologies. Kevin, that doesn't give you a break because you're going to be in the first one. So hurry up, man. So I got that going on. Immediately after I finish my stories, which should be by the end of this week or close to it, I'll be starting a project next week while I'm at Armistice. Armistice is the Penzic replacement event, which is a big SCA event held in Pennsylvania. I actually will be selling books there. I'll also be writing because I'll have essentially all I need to do my normal work while I'm there. And I'll be starting a new novel in the Sheeran universe. As that gets ramped up, it's about time. It's been about a year since None Call Me Mother came out, and time for me to get some more stuff going on in that universe. So lots going on there. As with New Mythology, there are so many projects in the work, it's hard to describe just how much is coming along. Somewhere in October, the dominoes are gonna start to fall, and it's just going to be crunch, 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 crunch down the line. We've got so much planned, so much getting ready to go. Going to get a new Milesian Accords novel from John Osborne. I'm expecting a novel from Benjamin Tyler Smith in his Necrolopolis universe, which is a fantastic universe. I've got a number of other projects going on, including a super secret project I'll be announcing at Dragon Con. Can't wait to be able to put that on the table. Everything is almost ready to go for that, and it's an exciting time. So I'm not quite as busy as Kevin is right at the moment. I don't think, because I'm in that, stirring a bunch of pots and letting everything sort of mellow into their proper form as time goes by. But there's a lot going on right now, and New Mythology Press is going to explode starting at the end of this year, and I'll be able to do Chris proud. I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Well, I'm still hanging out in 4HU land. Chris and I continue to hammer out work on 3 Steps to Oblivion, which is going to be one of the final books in the Guild Wars series, and basically the final act in a 3-parter for my crew, the Swamp Eagle Security guys out of Jacksonville. Right now we're standing strong at probably somewhere between 25 and 30,000 words, so we're rolling along. We will probably be picking up a little bit more pace here coming up in the next couple of weeks, just because Chris has had a ton of life stuff come up that's kept him on the road. Plus, he's back in the full swing of thing with cons, and I've had some life stuff come up that, I guess we can go ahead and talk about that now. The Malone clan is moving back to Florida, so really, really excited about that. That's a move that we've been looking to make for quite a long time. We just never could make the numbers add up from an income standpoint, but looks like the stars finally aligned, and I get to go home. So I have certainly enjoyed my 11 years here in the Tar Heel State. It's been a blast. Lord knows I love the climate up here. Gave me my family, met my wife up here. It's been a great 10 years with her. But we're really looking forward to shifting gears and hitting the coast, man. We're going to be moving to Panama City, the Emerald Coast, where we just were for Lasers and Loggers, and putting down there just in time for the kiddo to start high school, and really excited, man. Gonna take him to his first Florida State football game at some point, I'm sure. If not this fall, we'll do that next fall, and just gonna be good times. So really excited about that. But back on Bookland, 3 Steps to Oblivion, it's well on its way, and we hope to have that cranked out here sometime in the next handful of weeks.
Congratulations, Ian, on the move to where you want to be.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's something I've wanted to do for quite a long time, but it's got to be right. It's got to be the right opportunity, and I've been unemployed. I have no desire to go that route. I'm just not going to be that guy who's like, screw it, I want to move. I'm going to quit my job, go down there, and I'll find something and figure it out. I could do that when I was in my 20s. I'm not in my 20s. I'm not going to do that. So we had to wait for the right opportunity, and it finally came around for us. So
nice. Well, I just want you to know I get home several times a year to Bonifay.
Awesome.
Me and my siblings, we still have the old homestead, father's house, and so
yep.
I'll be 35, 40 miles away from you, so I'll give you a holler when I'm down that way.
Oh, there will be barbecue, sir. Yeah, there will be Q. The smoker will make the trip, And we will definitely be hooking up some shindigs, no doubt about it. But all right, well, that's pretty well what's happening in all of our worlds, guys, as writers. So with that established, let's go look and see what the listeners had to ask about.
You've got mail.
I don't even know if that last sentence made sense, but I'm pretty sure you guys get the general gist of what I'm talking about. This has not been my best of
We're talking about mail. That's what it is.
That's right, we're talking about mail. All righty, let's get my stuff pulled up here. Let's see here. All right, first question comes to us from Jenna. I like Jenna Fryer. Hey, guys, it's been a while since I've heard you guys rattle off the list of things that you are reading. I've got a beach trip coming up. Oh, wonder if she's going to Panama City. I need book suggestions, so hit me. What you got? You guys reading anything cool here lately? We got anything we can recommend to Miss Jenna other than all of the stuff that we've covered, which is spectacular, be that from William Joseph Roberts, Chris Kennedy Publishing, or otherwise?
Well, I've been going back through the Raj Whitehall series by David Drake and S.M. Sterling.
Okay.
Fun, military, sort of science fiction with a little bit, kind of an oddball series in terms of how you classify it. But it's good stuff.
All righty. Kevin, outside of all of your anthology stuff, do you have time to read anything for fun?
I don't, but there's a book that I'm going to pick back up again because I try to read it every 2 or 3 years. One of my favorites of all time. And it's an omnibus. It's a trilogy, The Deed of Paxenarian by Elizabeth Moon. It's fantasy and it is just incredible. And when I was younger, that thing was on par with the Dragonlance books. I mean, it was just,
It's really good.
Yeah, it is really good. Elizabeth Moon does a great job. And she writes fantasy and she writes sci-fi, so I kind of like that. She does both. But that's her fantasy stuff. So The Deed of Paxenarian is really one you want to pick up. And if you haven't listened to that, you might want to take a gander at that and take a listen to that too, Ian. So
cool. Yeah. Let's see, book recommendations. If you like the mill sci-fi stuff, but with some really, really cool characters, check out a series called The Lost Fleet from Jack Campbell. It's about a character named Black Jack Geary. Tackles the whole, what does it mean to be, basically christened a legend and an icon and then have to live up to that expectation when everybody thought you were dead. So that's basically the gist of it. You've got this guy who's I think he's a lieutenant and goes down with the ship, or so he thinks, but he ends up getting stuck in a stasis pod, is gone for a century, gets, turned into a hero and a legend and an icon among his people for the guy that held out and let everybody escape and went down with his ship. And then they find his pod and he wakes up to find all of this stuff. And now they expect him to solve all their problems. And he's like, listen, I'm just a guy who tried to do the right thing. So really, really good story, good series of books there. Recommend you check that out, The Lost Fleet. All right, next question comes to us from Chris. Not Kennedy, I don't believe. Yo, fellas, I've been following the college football name, image, and likeness saga, and I've got to say, I'm worried. It's not that I have a problem with players making money. I don't. It's just that I believe this will widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots of the game, and I don't think that's good for anyone except for the 4 or 5 same old teams that we see at the top of the polls each year. What are you guys' thoughts about name, image, and likeness? I'm kind of with you on that, Chris. I just don't like it. I certainly don't have a problem with players making money. I think in a perfect world scenario, if you're talking about pro sports, then absolutely, they should have every opportunity to do that. But, listen, we're already seeing the ramifications of this in that the freshman quarterback at Alabama who hasn't even played a snap yet is probably going to be worth $1 million by the time they start the season, just because of endorsements, because he goes to Alabama. You can't recruit against that if you're Auburn or if you're Florida State. Or God help you if you're the freaking Duke Blue Devils or Wake Forest. You can't. So, no, I very much share your concern. We're going to be bringing Terry Maggard on to talk books and writing on our next episode. Terry is also an avid college football fan, graduate of the University of Florida, God help him, and he is going to stick around and talk some college football. So we're actually going to be tackling this and a lot of other stuff college football related on our next episode, so be sure you check that out. Kevin, think I hear you there, man. You got a thought on this?
I think I'm the opposite of you on this. Listen, make what you can make, when you can make it, any way you can legally make it, by God. Okay? And here's the reason for that. They're talking about football, and that's mainly what people are talking about, the football players or maybe a few basketball or whatever. Do you know the college athlete right now that stands to make the most money?
Who's that?
She's in gymnastics, and it's because of her social media platforms, her Instagram and all her followers on TikTok.
Okay.
before, even though she had millions and millions and millions of followers, she couldn't monetize it. She couldn't make money off the ads. She couldn't get sponsors.
Right.
Now she can.
No, I agree all of that, but you don't, that's in a perfect world scenario whereby you're talking about the business of sports and athlete brands. And I get all of that, but in the college environment, this can't stand as long as you have boosters with deep pockets. I go back to Alabama and Auburn, man. If you're freaking War Eagle, you don't have a prayer. Right? There's a 5-star quarterback coming out of Nowheresville, Alabama. He's going to Tuscaloosa because when he steps in front of two boosters, the booster from Auburn is going to say, come to Auburn, we'll pay you $250,000 to endorse our lawn service. And the guy from Tuscaloosa is going to say, I'll pay you $1 million to endorse my car dealership. Where do you think that kid's going to go?
I know, but at the same time, you had the NCAA stopping gymnastics players from earning money on their TikTok.
Well, everybody just needs to forget about the NCAA. They're worthless. If you suck at your job worse than Congress, you're horrible, and that's the NCAA in my book. Rob, what you got?
Well, I think you're forgetting some of the second and third level effects that are going to be down the road here. First of all, I'm much more on Kevin's side of this. Those players, let's talk football again. Those players deserve to make money where the universities have always made money on their backs. It's been an awful setup for players, especially given the health problems associated. I love football. I love watching football. But the truth is if you play collegiate football, you are hurting your chances to live a long and productive life. That's the truth of it. And I appreciate those kids that do it. And if they have a chance to make money, they should darn well do it.
Right.
But I think there's two things that are going to happen off of this that are going to alleviate your concerns somewhat. Thing number one, I think a lot of the mid-range players are going to stay in college where they would have applied for, gone for the NFL draft. The reason being is that a lot of these kids, if they know they're not going to be a first-round draft choice, if they stay a year and can get an extra year of training and skills, they might go in the first round, and that makes a huge difference on the rookie contract. And yet at the same time, if they're good enough that they might be on that borderline, they can get those name and image sales that will maybe not as much as a normal, as a 6th round or 7th round rookie contract or 5th round rookie contract might get them, but enough so that the difference between that and a chance at even a 2nd or 3rd round rookie contract, they're going to want to stay. And that's where the agents are going to help weed through that. I think the other thing that's going to happen is we are seeing the death knell of the NCAA, and I'm with you. I will laugh on their corpse. That institution is awful, and it's just money grubbing of rich people taking out of kids. And I'm not necessarily the most egalitarian dude in the world, but I have all the respect for what those kids do and how much work they put in, and that money gets taken by administrators and by universities. That honestly, that whole academic system is awful at the moment, and that's another reason that's keeping it up. So I think one of the things that's going to happen is whether or not the NFL likes it or not, there's going to be a minor league that comes out that's effective. The XFL would have made it had it not been for for COVID, because I was there watching teams put out good quality football and make money at it. Not every team, but enough.
Right.
And especially because their model was designed with that sort of flex and that sort of training involved. There's going to be a minor league that comes out of it, because you're absolutely right that there's going to be some short-term, people at Tuscaloosa, and they're going to throw boatloads of money at some of these kids.
Sure.
And I'm for it, but I think in the long term, what that's going to mean is the NCAA football is going to end up going much more back to the amateur status of it used to be, because the really top flight ones, they don't want to go to college. They want to go into a developmental league. And so I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, they're going to go, they're going to go to wherever's going to get them to the league faster. I do want to go back to your point, though, about players getting paid. And I want to be really, really clear on this. I wholly agree with you. And the reason why I'm not a big fan of name, image, and likeness beyond, the recruiting wild, wild west that we're seeing here now is because it's just not fair. If you're a walk-on guard, you have no shot. Nobody gives a crap about how many Instagram followers you are. I mean, I guess if you're that one person like the gymnast Kevin talked about, that you're just that innovative and that dynamic on social, people want to follow you, then great. But the average kid is not going to be able to do that. So, it still sucks for him that he's putting in the same hours and the same workload every day in the weight room and on the practice field as the franchise quarterback who's now a millionaire, even though he's never played it down. I have a problem with that. I would much rather say, how about we cut coaches' salaries down from $8 and $9 million a year, looking at you, Nick Saban, Jim Harbaugh, Urban Meyer, before you faked another heart attack and bowed out of football again. Let's cut those down and let's set a wage that goes to every single player on the team. And that way, not only can you compensate football players, but you can compensate softball players, golfers, tennis players, and every other kid who works their way, forfeits the time in college that they could have working a part-time job playing sports. They get a cut of that too. NIL, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I have a solution for exactly what you're speaking of, and I think they need to institute it. And we'll just use UGA for example. All the official UGA jerseys that are sold, UGA gets a cut of it, yada, yada, yada. If there's 85 kids on the team, the jersey sales get split 85 ways, and even the four-string punter gets his cut just as much as the quarterback, because those were official university sales. Yep. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So if everybody's buying all the quarterback jerseys, cool. That third-string long snapper, he's getting a cut of that.
Yeah.
And that should be transparent, those kind of items, team items.
Yep.
See, I don't have a problem with your point, Kevin, or your suggestion, Kevin. I guess I'm not as worried about it as you are, Ian, and mostly because, look, if I had ever played football, I'm an offensive lineman. I know it. I have all the skills of somebody who can get in the way of somebody bigger and meaner and faster than I am. So I would never expect to get quarterback's salary. I understand the idea that there is some egalitarian way things work. Dak Prescott got a $40 million contract, and he was worth it in today's environment of the NFL. And the Zach Martin, who is a Hall of Fame player, and question mark as to whether Dak will be a Hall of Fame player or not. But Zach Martin is right now already Hall of Fame or close to it. He's never going to get anywhere close to that same kind of money.
Right.
That disparity will always exist in football. It's just the way it is.
All righty. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next question because we are definitely ticking off close to the hour. This one comes to us from Aslan. Been great to see so many athletes bringing gold home back to the old US of A and the Tokyo Olympics. How about you guys? Are you watching the Olympics? And if so, what are your favorite events? Rob, you strike me as an Olympics guy, man. Have you been paying attention to this? I have not. I don't mind saying I don't care about the Olympics. It's not that I don't say go USA. I root for them, but I might watch hockey. That could be a fun one. That's obviously not happening in the summers, but I just don't. I never care about swimming or badminton or any of that stuff any other time of the year, so I don't care about it now. But what do you think?
So I would be
okay,
absolutely all over it, but I cut the cable and don't really have any regrets to it. I've got several subscription channels that serve most of my needs, like, for example, MLB, the MLB watch every game, and if I can get it next year, I'll get the NFL Sunday ticket, and stuff along those lines. The problem is that every way they're forcing you to watch it solely on NBC, and I'm not going to spend $80 to watch it anymore. My life is too full, too busy. But I will say this: some of my fondest memories are watching Olympics, and in the sports that you just talked about. I mean, swimming. It's fun to watch people competing at the top level in any sport. Honestly, to me,
sure.
Even if I don't know a lot about it, I would be all over it. But my life has changed, and my TV watching has changed. So, not this year.
Fair enough. Kevin, how about you, man? You paying attention to the Tokyo Olympics?
I don't watch a lot of TV, so TV in my office doesn't get turned on very often. I listen to some Braves games and that kind of thing on the radio, but not really paying attention. I mean, I guess I'm keeping up with the news. I appreciate the fact that an Army first lieutenant, she won gold in skeet shooting.
Nice.
So I like that because the U.S. Army marksmanship team is always top notch, world class athletes doing that. So.
Nice.
Just keeping up with a little bit of the news, but I'm not necessarily watching it now.
All right, last question comes from Rich. Out with it, Ian. How did your redneck apple beer ribs turn out? That is all. They were spectacular. Best ribs I've ever made in my life. They were absolutely phenomenal. For those that missed the last episode, I joked that Busch Light Apple, which they've been advertising on NASCAR races for like the last year, finally made its way to North Carolina. It's a limited thing. And just for grins and giggles, I was like, I'm going to try that. Their marketing campaign when they rolled this out was some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen, and I will try it just because it was hilarious. They spoofed an Apple keynote address with their announcement of Busch Light Apple, with the Bush guy playing the part of Steve Jobs in a blazer with the sleeves ripped off and a flannel shirt. It's branding at its finest, but I digress. We finally got some here in my local grocery store. I got it. I smoked my ribs, basic rub, salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder was about it. Smoked them for about 2 hours, and then I put them in a pan, filled it up with a can of the Busch Light Apple beer, covered it in tinfoil, smoked it for another 2 hours covered, and then drained it all off, slathered it down with the sauce, cooked it uncovered for another hour just to caramelize everything on the meat. They were fall off the bone fantastic. They had a wonderful flavor. It was exactly what I wanted. I've always struggled to try and get the smoky profile that I want on the meat versus the nice, tender, fall off the bone texture. I seemingly can always get one or the other, but not both. This was the key. And believe it or not, you could taste the apple notes from the beer in the meat on top of the sauce by the time it came out. So all jokes aside, Rich, I kid you not, and my wife agreed. She's like, those are the best ribs you've ever smoked. So I don't know how long that beer is going to be on sale. I might end up having to sub that out for maybe like a Bold Rock cider or a Strongbow or something along those lines to get that same kind of flavor. But it was great, man.
Can you create that with an apple cider mix with a beer in the pan?
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I would never go so far as to use something like an Angry Orchard, because that's pretty well just apple-flavored sugar water. It's entirely too sweet. But, a Bold Rock is a much, for those who aren't in Virginia, North Carolina area, I don't know if they have that far down south. But anyway, it's a really good cider that's a little on the drier side, but it's still going to give you that apple flavor. I would probably do that. But they were great, man. So props to my buddy Chef Chris down in Panama City who came out to Lasers and Loggers. He and I were talking barbecue and smoked meat, and he's like, this is the way you do it, man. 2-2-1. Smoke them 2 hours uncovered, cover them, put some liquid in there, smoke them or cook them for another 2 hours. You do it in an oven, and then cook uncovered for an hour with your sauce and serve them out. And my man was spot on. He knows what he's talking about because they were fantastic, fantastic ribs. So, alrighty, on that, I think we're going to get ready to wrap this puppy up with a little thing we call White Flag.
White Flag.
White Flag is the segment where we just kind of tell listeners what's coming up on our radar in the coming weeks and months. So, Kevin, I'll throw it to you the first time around, man. What's on your docket other than editing anthologies and writing books?
Well, I got a class reunion coming up October 2nd, and shortly after that, be at Factory Con with Chris Kennedy and the gang. I don't think that I'll be at Dragon Con this year. It's a big crowd, and it's a little rough on my leg getting up and down those hills. So I don't know that I'll be at Dragon Con this year. But those are the next two things I've got coming up as far as, leaving the house and leaving my office and working on things.
Sure. Rob, how about you, man? What's going on?
I got a heck of an August, early September planned. I've got, I leave tomorrow, actually, for Pennsylvania. I'll be in Pennsylvania up until the 10th or so. I get back 2 weeks from tonight, as a matter of fact, and I'll be, like I say, at Armistice. That's the SCA / all sorts of LARPing groups. Pretty much, if you do any kind of medieval reenactment, every group it's a really big tent version this year because it's not SCA. It's not an SCA event this year, so it's going to be a lot of new people for me to show new mythology and my own fantasy novels. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I will be coming back on the 22nd, 21st or so as Planet Comic-Con here in Kansas City. And I'll be doing that hopefully with Todd Faunestock as my neighbor. Todd Faunestock's a writer I'm working with right now. He's really an amazing writer. I'm looking forward to doing more with him down the road. So that's Planet Comic-Con, which is one of the big regional cons. It was at 75,000 a couple of years ago. We'll see what the number is this year. But again, I'll be selling there and looking forward to meeting people and doing that sort of thing. And then, of course, once that's done, a week later, I'm headed off to Atlanta to be to Dragon Con. And, so I'll be doing a whole bunch of stuff at Dragon Con.
Man.
I've been talking about this super secret project announcement that we'll be doing there. I want to give props to Siska Small, who is making sure that we get a chance to say it in the meet and greet, the fantasy meet and greet at the start of it all. And I've got several panels I'll be on. Going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. It's my first one as an attending pro, so it's really exciting.
Nice. Eastbound and down, load them up and truck them.
Absolutely.
Rob Howell, the Road Warrior. So, all righty. Well, as for me, as mentioned, I have got the 3 Steps to Oblivion that I'm working on, as well as a couple of other little side projects. And then, a move to Florida that I've got to do like in 9 days. So, a little busy on that front. But looking forward to all of the above. Also looking forward to the return of football. NFL mini camps are pretty much in full swing. College is going to be checking in here shortly. Also got this little thing brewing over in the SEC that it looks like Texas and Oklahoma could be joining. That's nothing short of frightening. Be keeping an eye on that. Thanks to Rob Howell. Thanks to Kevin Steverson for joining me on the show as always. And we appreciate William Joseph Roberts coming on board. Our boy Hillbilly. We got to have him back sometime. Most definitely. Thanks to you, the listeners. If you like this show, we say it every time. Please leave us 5 stars wherever it is you listen. It helps to bump the show up from the rankings, help people find us, and bring more people to this thing we like to call the Nexus of Geekery and Guy World. Presented by Chris Kennedy Publishing. Message-free sci-fi with a slice of fantasy. Booyah! Bonus drop. You guys have a great night. We'll talk to you next time on the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. See ya!